Hello everybody, I have a kind of a special video I'm going to do today. I'm going to be talking about my family, my mom, my dad, and my sister. See you in a minute. Okay, my dad was born in 1937 in Logan, Utah, to George Turner and Alta Turner. And well, it was Alta Henderson before she married my grandpa, George Turner. And he was kind of a wild kid growing up. He got in trouble and stuff like that, but he always had a really good heart. And he was the type of person that he'd stick up for the underdog. If he saw he hated a bully. He absolutely hated somebody who picked on somebody else. He was a really, really tough guy too. He was only about 5'8", probably 180 to 200 pounds in that area most of his life, but he was pretty scrappy and pretty tough guy. And he'd always, like I said, he always stuck up for the underdog, somebody who was being bullied, whether he knew him or not. He, if he saw somebody being picked on, he would just step in and take over. And basically, it wasn't like, if you want, why don't you pick on someone your own size? It wasn't really like that. He wouldn't give them the option. He just basically beat the crap out of them right there. And he got in a lot of trouble for it, but his attitude, I think, was, well, they're gonna think twice before they ever do it again. And especially if somebody was a little bit slow or handicapped, he'd definitely step in, like I said, whether he knew him or not. He never finished 9th grade because he was working part-time at a shoe repair shop making shoes, and he got in trouble in shop class because he was like I said, he was kind of wild and he was being unruly in class and stuff. And this was in the 50s when all the kids had their hair in the ducktails and stuff like that. And he was sitting on a stool and the teacher come up behind him, and they can't do this nowadays, but back in the 50s they were pretty much allowed to do it. The teacher come up behind him and grabbed him by the back of the hair and picked him up off of the stool. My dad, as he come off the stool, grabbed the stool and smacked the teacher with it and basically beat the crap out of him in front of the whole class. Left school. This is in 9th grade. He's like 14, 15 years old. He was a big kid for 14, 15 years old. But he stopped growing pretty much after that. But he left school and talked to my grandpa and everything and told him he didn't want to go back, and that he talked to his job and they said they'd take him on full time, and he just wanted to just work and make his money that way. So he did that. And he my mom and him met in, it was either 1959 or 1960, because I was born in November of 1960 and I'm the oldest child out of me and my sister. But they met. My mom was going to college at Utah State University in Logan, Utah, and she was working at a restaurant called Dick's Cafe, and she was a waitress there. And my dad used to go in there all the time, and he'd sit there at the counter and flirt with her and stuff. And he would say stuff like, this is the girl I'm gonna marry and stuff like that. And he told me that. He told me that he knew right when he saw her that he was in love with her, and that was the girl that he was gonna marry. And my mom was is a totally different person than my dad was. She was real straight-laced and never got in any trouble or anything like that. She was the second oldest of, like, I think there was 8 kids in the family. There was 3 brothers and 5 sisters. And my mom was the second oldest. And she didn't feel the same way at the beginning, but after they started going out, then she did love him, and she tamed him quite a bit, because he would do pretty much anything for her. We never really had a lot of money or anything like that growing up, but we never went without either. Probably the most money we ever had was when we were living in Sunnyvale, California, and he was running that Kentucky Fried Chicken store. Him and my mom both ran it together, and they were part owners in it because in the franchise. And so we were doing pretty good there, had a brand new house and everything. But he hated the job and everything, and it was the stress, I guess, was really getting to him. So he started drinking a lot, and he decided it wasn't for him. He wanted to quit, but they had bought this house and everything, and my mom really didn't want to leave. So he left by himself, and I think he was probably gone a month or two is all, and then came back, and my mom had decided, you know, she'll go back to Utah with him and everything. So we moved back to Utah, and we lived in West Jordan, Utah. I went to seventh and 8th grade there, and he drove truck for a bunch of different trucking companies. And my mom worked as a waitress in some different restaurants around Salt Lake City and stuff. One of them was called Coy's Restaurant, and then also Village Inn Restaurant. She worked there. But when she was growing up, before she ever met my dad, she worked for KFC. And it's the very first Kentucky Fried Chicken store in Utah. She worked at the one on 39th South and State Street. And I think it was just called Harmon's though, because Pete Harmon owned it at the time. And it might not have been called Kentucky Fried Chicken. I think it was called the Dewdrop Inn or something like that. But anyways, we lived in West Jordan, Utah. Then we moved to Sandy, Utah. And we moved to, what was it? From Sandy, we moved to Granger, which is now West Valley City. Then we moved to Gunnison. Then we moved back to Logan. We've moved a lot in our lives, but he passed away in 2002 of congestive heart failure while we were living in Bullhead City, Arizona. And the reason we moved there is because of the elevation and everything. He was having problems with breathing and everything, and he thought that might help him, but he only made it about probably 6 months after we moved there. If we wouldn't have moved though, he wouldn't have made it that long. I'm sure he wouldn't have, because we were living in the high elevation in Logan, Utah. But that's my favorite place we've ever lived, and I got to know him real well living in Bullhead City, because I would come home from work early in the morning and sit on the front porch with him, and I'd see him sitting there on the porch waiting for me and my sister both. Me and my sister both worked at Walmart at the time, and he was just a great man. I miss him every day, and I think about him every day, but I know I'll be with him again sometime, so I have, faith in that. But I've written a song about him and my mom, and if you want, I can post that at the end. Well, I will. I'll post that at the end of the video. And what gave me the idea for the song was my mother, because when they first met and everything, he was really wild guy and she was really mild and everything. But the song is called He's So Wild and She's So Mild. And my mom came up with that title, and I just wrote around it. It's the first song I ever wrote. Well, I wrote some others just for fun and stuff like that, but the first one I ever did anything with. And it's just really basic and everything, but it gets the idea across about how I feel about my mom and my dad. I also, of course, I love my mom with all my heart also. She's a really great woman. She sacrificed a lot for me and my sister growing up and everything. And even the past little while, because I was out of work for 6 months, and she helped me quite a bit. So I'm really grateful to my mom. And also, I haven't said a lot about my sister, but I love my sister with all my heart. She's a really good person, has a really good heart and everything, and I'm starting to get a little emotional, so I'm just going to play that song and end it here, and I will see you next time. They said he's so wild and you're so mild, but opposites attract. It wasn't just an accident, you didn't meet by chance. In the scheme of everything, God always had a plan. The day you gave your heart to Him made Him a better man. So don't be sad, no, don't be sad, and don't you cry. Someday you'll fly above the stars. With Him you'll soar forevermore. They said he's so wild and you're so mild, but if they only knew, if you were a friend to Him, there's not a thing He wouldn't do. He'd offer up a helping hand if you were down and sad. This man I sing about today, I'm proud to call my dad. So don't be sad, no, don't be sad, and don't you cry. Someday you'll fly above the stars. With Him you'll soar forevermore. Remember all the happy times together, and believe there's still more happiness to come. There will be a time when we will be together, when our life on this earth is done. They said he's so wild and you're so mild, but they never really knew. You saw through into His heart and found the love so true. He may be gone, but He'll live on in memories, and then one fine day you'll be back in His arms again. So don't be sad, no, don't be sad, and don't you cry. Someday you'll fly above the stars. With Him you'll soar